Hey, that's Andrew Kishino right there.
Works for me.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty utilitarian dude, so that works for me.
Yeah, and this you see before you, ladies and gentlemen, is the guy who helped me figure out, or at least get started on Source Connect. And without Source Connect, I couldn't have bagged that one particular video game job that I knew I couldn't show up in person for at the beginning of the pandemic.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. Congratulations. Yes. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was, this was around March, the second week of March. Everything was starting to hit the fan, and we knew, okay, I think life is about to change in a major way. And I said, I've got everything I need here behind this green screen, except I don't have Source Connect. And I said, I know who knows tech stuff. Kish. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you were very patient, and you talked me through a lot of it. And I remember I got really lucky because I think I was about a week ahead of the curve because Source Connect had someone available to help me hold my hand. Because after that, the floodgates opened for them, and everybody started getting Source Connect. And
I think the other thing that compounded the problem, specifically with people who do what we do,
right,
was a lot of people were coming in. It was not only that so many people wanted it, but so many people were coming in precisely at ground zero. Like they had their entire experience with Source Connect was that they knew it was Source Connect. That's it.
Yeah.
And so configuring a lot of stuff, and it can get real hairy, was for a lot of people who were not terribly tech savvy, it was kind of like there was a high amount of anxiety.
Yeah. Added to the anxiety of COVID, and you got yourself you got a real bitches brew right there.
You ain't lying.
Man,
you are not lying.
The week before that, I went in for the last in-person studio gig I have done, and that was for an animated show that I don't think has aired yet. And I had already been reading up enough, and I was in there purelling everything. And the mic, the headphones, I mean, you name it. And then I got out of there, and everything turned out okay. But the very next week, I said, "No, this is no longer safe. This is no longer safe."
No, and considering the fact that it's like you got a family that you go home to, it was something that was just. And I've had to explain this, to multiple people on repeated occasions. Is the core aspect of our job is staying 4 inches off a device that multiple people breathe and spit on.
Yeah.
So
this far away, about that
far
away,
Right. So short of being a dentist, you can't. It's hard to think of another job where it's necessary to be in such close proximity with something that could be a source of. Would be pretty much one of the highest sources of contamination.
Yeah.
So that was something that I think that and I have my own feelings about, like, what's going on now with places opening up or people going in.
Right.
I mean, I have my own sort of feelings on that, but I think it was prudent that a lot of that was shut down. And I think on the back end, one of the things that it did usher in was, for a lot of people, was the long overdue adopting and familiarization with technology. Because a lot of people in our field, they didn't have a home studio. They didn't.
Right.
They literally knew nothing. Like this was the thing that was paying their mortgage, paying their bills, feeding their families. And, I mean, from my days as an athlete, I knew everything about all the various kinds of equipment.
Right.
As a musician, I know everything about every kind of software, instrument, whatever. I don't understand why more voiceover talent has not embraced knowing more about the very thing the one thing that gets them where they need to go.
I think that's down to personality because
I would agree.
It helps if you're smart, but I'll take a hard worker over a smart person almost every day of the week if the smart person's lazy. God. Because the hard worker will figure it out. The smart person will just wait for it to come to them, and it may not. And
listen, my motto, Chris, is I may not be more talented than you, but you will never out hustle me.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, and I remember talking to a couple of actors. I mean, people who were busy voice actors, and they were absolutely panicked because they were always sending their voice acting auditions in on an iPhone. And because their names were so well known, that's all they ever needed to do. They didn't care about the quality of it because their name preceded them. And all they needed to do is hit the performance, and they would get the gig.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I'm so glad that you concretized and cemented that as someone who, in all honesty, I look up to you. Okay,
well,
as somebody with a level of talent that and ability that you have, you're an incredible actor. You're a consummate professional, and you're an amazing person. But that attitude of, because you would hear it so often, and I even see it on social media where people said, well, I just did it on my iPhone. It's like, yes, but you're somebody who is, if not a celebrity, you're somebody who makes high six figures. So exactly like you said, you could have written it on the back of a postage stamp and it wouldn't have made a difference.
Right.
You know, if you're Lenny Lunchbox, you don't have that. It's like, it's got to sound like the job.
Yeah, I know. In fact, I just did. Obviously all I can talk about is the general. I did an audition. It was a callback for a big project, and they said, and I think it's between me and one other person, and they said, you can just send it on your iPhone if you want. It's going to be a Zoom meeting, and you can just use your iPhone. And I said, I tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm gonna record this as a wave, 48 kilohertz, 24-bit, and it'll be with a condenser, and it'll be in a soundproof booth that I have custom made. I'm gonna give you a broadcast quality audition. This should in no way affect your choice over me and the other person, because I'm guessing, why did they give me the option to do it on an iPhone unless the other person perhaps isn't able to do it on anything but an iPhone? I don't know why they would care. But I just said, look, you're going to want to listen to this later. Just let me give it to you on something nice and clean, and that'll be that. So I was actually I was sort of awestruck by the fact that they only wanted it on an iPhone. I thought, how about I just give you something here? This extra part's for free. You know?
Exactly. And I mean, sorry, before we continue, what is the policy on cursing?
Curse all you want.
Okay.
Curse all you want.
I tend to try to limit it anyway, because it means that when I curse, it means I don't choose my words well. But to the extent that, first of all, I completely agree with you. And it is a function, again, just my personal thing, but it's a function of sheer laziness. And the difficulty is that when you foster that and it gets into a position where people are allowed to get that latitude, something like this occurred, and it was like, you don't have a choice anymore.
Right.
You don't have a choice. And this is much like football, much like music, much like, any other thing. When you get to the upper echelon, it is, to use the phrase, a game of inches.
Yeah.
So once all of us are within a certain proximity, shall we say, of what is the bookable read, it is that those inches, those critical inches, that are going to make the difference between, like you said, it's like, everybody pump your brakes, let me give you a clean 4824 wave file, so when you hear it, you don't have to imagine what this is going to sound like.
Right. Yeah. Knowing full well that, if I were to book this thing, I would like to think it was because they just liked the read I did, and that's probably would be why. But it would be amusing to me to find out later it was because, the other guy was pretty good too. You guys were right there. It's just that it's pandemic time, so we can't have you come in. So we liked your home setup better. Thought, all right, well, hey, score that one for being industrious, And
I would say, first of all, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
and
nothing.
And second of all, because again, much like people who come up and say, "Oh, I have a great voice, I should be doing voiceover."
Yeah.
Because it's like saying, "Hey, I ran fast to catch the bus, I should be in the Olympics."
Right.
Voiceover is not, man, I said like 13, 15 words and they can't stop throwing the checks at me. It's like voiceover is being a self-directing, self-producing, technical troubleshooting, actor choice having, punctual, polite, professional individual.
Yeah.
That is the stuff that puts you, and that plays well with others.
Right.
And that is the thing that puts you into that realm. There's a million people that can do impressions or have deep voices.
Yeah.
And we both know that. You and I both know, because I'm sure you get assaulted with that.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, as do you. You know, I mean, yeah, there are times when I'm doing my stream and I'll play with somebody who is like they're a fan of the game and I do a voice in the game. So we'll play together, you know, like once a week I play with fans of the game. And every now and then there'll be somebody who comes along who is obviously more than just a fan. They want to get into voice acting and they start auditioning. You can hear it, you know, and they start throwing out voices. Just having fun. And I totally get it because I would have done the same thing. And I hear it in their voices. I hear the 22-year-old me, the 23-year-old me, and I'm thinking, yeah, you know, this cat's got a lot of enthusiasm, but I can already tell they don't know where to go from here. And I usually send them all to the same place. D. Bradley Baker.
I was about to say the same thing.
I want to be a voiceactor.com. Go there.
Oh my God. I cannot. Okay. First of all, D is one of my all-time favorite people. Not a ton of respect for him. He's one of my all-time favorite people. And to say that he is the apex of talent would still be a vast understatement.
Yeah.
He's a genius and an incredible talent.
Right.
But I always send people and here's the key. The minute people say, if they take it, they say, great, I'll read this. Then you go, okay, then you're beginning the journey. If they go, then you're like, all right, good luck.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Because it's not a one-page website. This is I want to be a voiceactor.com. And I've told people numerous times, just go there. Like Bob Bergen's great. And Kif Vandenhuvel's got a really cool podcast, and he talks about this sometimes. And Rob Paulson will talk about the business and geez, I mean, there's so many guys that are out there and gals that are out there throwing out pearls of wisdom. But D took everything you need to know, and he created page after page after page after essay about every fathomable question you could have about getting into the business from zero. I don't care if you live in the Adirondacks and you have no Wi-Fi. If you can somehow get to a library and read this, he can take you from there to having a shot to getting in.
Fam, you could live on Mars. It is absolutely completely comprehensive. Yeah. There is, and it is one of those things where people say, oh, well, if you're just giving me a website, it's like you don't understand. Anything I say is already said better by him. Yeah. So do yourself a favor, check it out. Yeah. But that, as we both know, also weeds out 97% of the people.
Yeah, it's the first year of law school. You go to the first year and they just hit you with it. They cover you in shit and see if you can take it. If you show up for the second year, they say, well, you got a chance to be a lawyer now. Exactly. If you can get through D's website and feel like, okay, this is not going to be easy, but I really still want to try. It's like, okay, you made it through the first test, because it ain't going to be easy at all. Yep. I know. And voice acting, I believe, is much more meritocratic than almost any other facet of show business. Absolutely. I mean, on camera, you might know the right people, or you just might have the right look and not be able to act your way out of a paper bag, but you can start to slowly move up. But in voice acting, you're not going to be able to fake it for long. I think, I don't know who it was that I chatted with. They said, you might be able to land one job because of the quality of your voice, but it might just be right in the pocket for what they want, and it might be a very limited read. But after that, good luck getting other stuff if you don't know how to act and create characters. So
everybody in the batting cage will make contact once. Right. Yeah. So, and one of the things, and again, this is something that certainly, I don't want to, make this kind of like a negative thing, but one of the things that, that became apparent to me the more I was paying attention to certainly how things, and I hate to say this also, it's like how things changed since I got on, which was like 2003. Okay. Was the preponderance of people who utilize social media and the upward networking with people as if to create a sense of familiarity that insinuates themselves into environments that builds their career. And to me, okay, I know you're a hip hop fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gangstar, bless the dead, bless Guru, on the beginning of Hard to Earn, he says, and I'll paraphrase, he says, whenever I saw other guys out who I admired and I looked up to, I never hung around them. All I did was I gave them a compliment, I gave them a handshake, and I told them my name, and I was out. And that was it. Because I was so focused on what I was doing to get where I needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
But when the hustle takes precedence over the talent, then what you have is something that, exactly like you said, you get inserted into a situation and the light turns on and you can only do that one dance move.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just, it's something that I'm like, you know, again, it's not, I certainly didn't want to sort of, you know, belabor that as to say whatever, but it's just something on the heels of Dee's website, because Dee stresses the foundational talents of developing your own skills,
right?
As opposed to, you know, the quickest way to get on is to network with all these people, which is not the quickest way to go. That's the quickest way to get found out that you can't do it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because this is important, because I have people come to me all the time and ask about it, and it's important for them to hear, because I don't always think to mention this, because I see people working Twitter. I see people working it.
Yeah. Listen, they are walking those Twitter streets like Twitter street walkers. Like
they're If you roll to almost a stop, they're coming right up to your window. Yeah, let's oh my God. And for real, the thing too is, because the other dead giveaway is like, you roll up on Facebook and it's like, 4,974 friends. Yeah, all right, cool, whatever. Because you know what's up. You know what's up. Come on, man. I mean, well, that's what I got off Facebook for many reasons. That's one of them.
Smart man.
Yeah, I use Twitter basically for commercial purposes. I use it basically to say, hey, I'm streaming on this day, or hey, I did this thing. Or every now and then I have colleagues and I say, hey, this guy's awesome. She's great. Check him out. Or, hey, here's something cute that happened. But that's about it. I'm in, I'm out. I'm working. But and again, I know that I probably would have done this as well. I see that there are voice actors out there who, you know, I know they're not in the union. And because if they were in the union and they weren't working much, their Twitter profile usually says that they're union, because they have to make sure that you know. But the ones who are not union, they, you know, you have to hustle. Obviously, I understand it, but I know that sometimes a lot of them will throw out casting calls, and I don't know that world at all. I know that a lot of projects get cast, however they get cast in the non-union world, but they throw a wide net out onto Twitter. And I've had a couple of times, some of my followers, they'll at me on this casting call, like, hey, Chris, check this out. And they just don't know. They don't realize it. But I understand it. I say to myself, look, this is the only way they know to get over. And you can try so hard to get noticed, you forget that, you know, a lot of this energy I'm supposed to be putting into learning a craft. Because God forbid, like you said, God forbid they actually notice you. It's like, okay, what do you have? Well, I have this. Yeah, I saw that 5 times this week. But what else do you have?
Right. And you know, what's so funny about that, and because there have been a few people who've tried to, you know, chess me up on that stuff, which never works. But I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with what I did prior to this was I was in the music industry. Right. And I was in the hip hop music industry when it, and I don't want to, you know, that sounds awful to say, like when it was really hip hop, because real hip hop is everybody. But to the extent that it was a lot more Wild West then, is I'm intimately familiar with elbowing and getting into like that position. Yeah. So the nature of doing this in voiceover was second. It's second nature to me. It's like my second go round with this. Right. So anytime anyone would criticize me and say like, well, well, you don't understand the hustle. I'm like, you understand, I did it before Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay. When you would be battling guys on stage where they would like be rhyming, their shirt would come up a little, and you could see these guys were holding a firearm. And it's so you're like, I have to be very clear with you. This is something that I am incredibly familiar with on a level and in a manner that you have no experience with.
Right.
So I don't want to hear that. What I want to hear is exactly like you said and exactly what D says, which is the only thing that gets you ahead is to understand your innate strengths, build on those, your weaknesses, and build those up, and to constantly evolve and develop your craft.
Right. Yeah.
Because there could be a lot of singers around, but when Sade or Seal walk in the room, people duck because they know, okay, I got a little song, they can sing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something that they do too. It's ideas. Because my wife is a singer, and she would love your background. Exactly. She would look at that record collection you got there and think, "Oh, let me just touch him. Let me just look through him."
Yeah, it's not a Zoom background. It's the real.
Yeah,
thing.
That's the real thing. Oh, and look, and you happen to pull out Marvin Gaye. I think was that "The Night I Fell in Love," or was that? No, that's a Luther Vandross album.
That's Midnight Love. I was like, and
Midnight
that was totally
Love.
random.
Okay, yeah, that was totally random, but it has sexual healing on it.
That's the one.
I saw this documentary. I watched part of it. It was on the 808. This little.
Oh, that one is so crazy.
I know. My wife and I were watching that, and she said, "They used the 808 for that. They use it." And Marvin Gaye's "Sexual Healing." Apparently, everyone in the industry went, "What is Marvin doing with that?" It's like he's about to make one of the biggest hits of his career with that little beat in the background.
Yep.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And you hear those sounds, and you're like, oh my God, those are the sounds now that when you listen to a lot of like slowed down, trapped out R&B, trap music, drill music, but it's all 808. It's survived that long.
That's funny.
So it's crazy.
Well, yeah, that's what my wife and I talk about is that I have an appreciation for music, but I'm not that musically inclined. Like my ear is for my performances. So I'm musical in that way. I riff that way. But she tells me that, like, we'll talk about musicians she loves. And she went to the Musicians Institute in LA. And back in like the early mid-90s, she said one of the last times it was really still kind of a reputable school. It became more of a business after that, at least she believes. But she learned a lot about theory. And she says that one of the things we love about Sade, it isn't just that she's got this really cool voice, but, people forget Sade is not just her name, it's her band. Her band's name is Sade. And it's the ideas. Her songs have these ideas behind them. They're not just pop that you're used to hearing. They really have interesting ideas behind them. So does Seal. Because you can find someone that can sing, that can hit notes better than Seal, but that texture, that voice, the character of it.
No one's tapping that.
And to write a song like Kiss from a Rose, which is a waltz, which at the same time is, Because in popular music, nothing was being written in 3. Yeah.
Everything was written in 4. So, and to sort of bridge that to voiceover, it's like whenever I see, and Bob Bergen is one of the people who I'm tremendously grateful to count as a good friend. Bob and I have talked about this, where it's like, there's tens of thousands of people who could walk up to me and say, "Hey, I do a great impersonation of Porky Pig."
Right.
And you're like, what you can do is the sonic emulation of the character.
Right.
What underpins everything is the knowledge of exactly who Porky Pig is, married to that exact performance. For all the things I've ever seen you do, which are like your ability to mimic and your ability to adapt and change and alter your voice is astounding. But what makes it that much better is it's always informed, underpinned, and glued together with this solid base of a fleshed out 3-dimensional character. And that is the thing that's like, when you see YouTube videos where people do like 68 accents in 30 seconds, it's like, that's a great party trick.
Yeah, it's a great parlor trick. It's really fun, and people kept asking me, why don't you do one of those? I said, look, like you, I had a career before this. I was a stand-up comic.
Right.
So for 10 years, I was on the road, and that's a different hustle, like you said. And I actually had a couple of gigs. There were no firearms, but I know 3 different comics. that have been shot at on stage. And I thought,
yeah,
I've worked some of those rooms. I mean, I thought, okay, I need to watch my P's and Q's. But yes, so there's a hustle there. Because the music business.
Like the brosure. You don't want to get shot at. It's nothing like the brochure.
Yeah, people come up to you and say, "Oh, it must be really cool being a rapper. It must be really cool having having a CD out. Must be this, must be that." And the same thing. Must be fun doing stand-up. It's like you're seeing 1%. You're seeing you're seeing that performance on stage. That's all you saw.
Because again, and not to sort of delve into the darker side of stuff, but one of the things whenever I see people say like, they'll criticize voice actors or they'll say this, that, and the third, it's like, again, I come from a thing where I would see, like it was unfortunately a regular occurrence. You would see somebody who'd be like, yo, your song sucks. And you would have to let it roll, but these guys wouldn't go in. And 30 seconds later, you're knuckling it's like a brawl. And that started off of, I hate your music. And you're like, and you be in the middle of a fight thinking to yourself, what am I doing? What the hell is happening? I see people on Twitter go in on people like, I hate this and I hate that. And I've even heard people say that stuff about me, but I'm kind of like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. Like, I'm like, if that's the best you got, I'm here all day. I'm like a Sandlot. Oh yeah, bring it on. That's what I'm here for. It's like, I can do this all day.
Yeah. I had people asking me to, why don't you do one of those 30 voices in however many seconds? And I said, when I first started stand-up, one of the things I did was I would get 5 minutes as an open micer, and I'd do 25 voices in 5 minutes in front of a live audience. That's what I would do. And, they loved it. But they didn't remember my name. They didn't remember anything I said. They just said, oh, that guy spits out the voices really fast. And then eventually I began to create, bits around a voice. And I began to craft some sort of idea of what I was doing. And so I finally, just to get it off my back, I said, all right, fine. Here's a YouTube video, and I'm doing, I don't know, a dozen voices in 2 or 3 minutes. And it's not me staring at the camera. I thought, no, fuck that. Here's a picture of the celebrity. Here's my voice, and I'm going to edit it together. I'm not trying to impress you with how fast I can do them. Because in general, yes, there are going to be some jobs where if you're voice matching different people on a page, you might have to bounce around from one to the next over the course of a page. But they don't require you to do that for a job. If you need to take some extra takes, they'll have you take extra takes. They understand. They don't expect perfection. So I thought, yeah, like you said, that's a fun party trick. And if you can make a lot of money doing a YouTube video of it, do it.
Oh, all the more power to you.
Yeah.
All the more power to you. But it does, again, like you said, there's also now the fact that it's like, as independent contractors, we have to frequently be our own accountants. You have to be excellent. You have to be your own assistant. You have to know how to tech your own computer.
Right.
Which is something that I saw. I mean, I certainly would never call anybody out, but I had a lot of phone calls with people who were damn near on the edge of tears because stuff was completely, it was fugazi. And really? I was like, and I'm like, it's so much of the job of walking people through a lot of stuff is part, I don't want to say psychologist, but it's part sort of tempering people down to a place where they can see something and then walk through it, and then translating something that may be hyper technical into something that is very simple. But all of those things where we are now, I mean, especially if you're earning your career, it's like we are in a place now where it used to be you had to be already self-sufficient. It's like multiples of that now. Yeah.
And unless you want to go through, there are some studios that have protocols that they're following. I was asked if I wanted to go into one, and I said no. It's a lovely studio. I've recorded there. My son has recorded there because he's doing the occasional job now. But I said,
oh wow, that's great.
He joined the union at 6. I joined the union at 30. He joined at 6. It's great. But yeah, they showed me the video, and I said, it's a wonderful studio. I love that studio. I love the people that work there. I'd love to drive on down there and walk in and record and leave. It'd be nice to get out. I said, but I can't do that. I just can't do that. We're not there yet. When we get a vaccine or when our therapeutics have advanced to the point where the mortality rate's equal to the flu, all right, I'll go into a studio then. You know,
Right.
you make it equal
Right.
to the flu, and I'll go to studios again. So
Right.
that, yeah, I can handle the flu, but I can't handle the other parts of it. So, yeah, unless you're
side note.
willing to take that chance, yeah, like you said, you've got to be one-stop shopping.
Right. And that's something where, again, I mean, I certainly don't want to call anybody out, but I've seen like people posting selfies and stuff like that, and it grates my nerves. Not because I don't want to see people making money, and not because
Right.
I don't want to see studios getting money, because I am a firm believer, and I've told this to every studio, because some people have expressed, it's like, well, will studios be around? It's like, listen, if this has proven anything, it's proven that a vast majority of people have no friggin'
Yeah.
business trying to work their own home studio because they can't. So your
Yeah.
jobs are safe.
If you're an
like,
engineer,
way safe.
Yeah, if you're an engineer,
Like,
you're
don't-
going to be fine.
You're totally fine, because
Yeah.
some people you could lead them by the hand and they still face plant.
Right.
But yeah, that it's like, damn, you just it's a very, very difficult thing, because you finding the balance between wanting to make sure that everybody's going to be okay and everyone's going to survive,
Right.
and respecting everybody's sleep. But then again, also on top of that, saying is like, listen, when everything rides on you,
Yeah.
and there's no guarantee that things could go, that something couldn't happen. And again, it's like, this is not something where it's like, oh, you're over it in 3 days. It's like, you might not be over it if you get over for 12 weeks, 16 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, you might be losing your place.
Yeah,
You know?
it's hard because they're still dealing with they call it in England, in Britain they're calling it long COVID, and I actually have two people I know, actors, a boyfriend and girlfriend that live together in London. They had it for 3 months.
Oh,
3
my
months,
God.
and they're in their 30s and they're healthy, and they had it for 3 months. They said, "Look, I never even got to get a test because it's so screwed up over there. They were so overburdened." They said, finally, after weeks, they sent a doctor over to take my temperature and measure my lungs, my lung capacity. She said I was 89%, which normally would get you a hospital bed. And they said, "You're just going to have to stay home and rest." And she said it took her about 3 months. And she believes she's on the other side of it. And I thought, this is a healthy person.
Yeah.
3 months. So you just don't know when it's going to tap you on the shoulder like that.
Right. And you don't want to get tapped. I mean, and this is one of those
Yeah.
things too, where, and you know this, because we've had this discussion for multiple times over the course of like seeing each other back and forth in places,
Yeah.
where I have said, and everybody knows this about me, it's like, come around my face when we're in a session and you're talking about that, oh, it's just allergy stuff, I will box you. I will box you, because you're going to be allergies with a box, because you do not have a degree in epidemiology, and more than likely you're lying because you want to be there for the job.
Right.
Now we're at a stage, hopefully, and I'm not even trying to be funny about this, but now we're at a stage now where it's like, if you're sick, keep your ass at home,
Yeah.
because you cannot risk other people's lives. And let's be very clear, who wants to be sick even if it's a cold anyway? You acting like it's like, well, it's cold,
I know.
get over it. It's like,
Yeah.
I could have 5 sessions booked the next week, and if you screw
I
them
know.
all, so don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that's one of the easiest things to get is a cold, and that's one of the easiest ways for us to ruin a job. And, you know, that alone is hard enough to overcome. Yeah. I've
told people, and this is the thing, people who don't obviously work in voiceover, when I back out of situations where it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't be here because whatever.
Yeah.
And I extricate myself from a situation, is you don't understand something. I can break my arm and go to work.
Yeah.
I can't catch a cold and go to work.
I know.
So let me, do my thing. Okay. So don't be like, oh, you're afraid of a cold. It's like, no, there's so much wrong wrapped up in there. No,
Yeah, I am afraid of the trust dynamic I have with the person who hired me, that I will show up and perform as requested. I'm afraid of fracturing that because I was cavalier about my hygiene, my health,
Right.
and yeah, we have this odd kind of durability / fragility. You're right. I could show up at a session with a broken arm. It's like, look, there's a Look, The Simpsons is my golden goose. I've said this many times. It's the greatest job I'll ever have. It's the greatest job in the world. My wife, I rushed her to the hospital in labor at 5 a.m. on a Monday morning back in 2013. Yeah, that was when our daughter was born. And as we're running red lights to get down there, because she's spotting for me, she's in labor, contractions were 5 minutes apart, which means
holy smokes,
it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
She's spotting for me at the red lights, and she's like, okay, you're good. I'm running it. And by the way, she says, by the way, don't miss the session. I had a recording session for The Simpsons later that day. And so we're there. She's getting an epidural. She's about to get an epidural. So they take her away. They give her the epidural. She comes back, and she's also the CFO of my corp. So she does the payroll. She does the books. She says, the epidural is going to kick in soon. Give me your phone. I'm going to run payroll. I hand her my phone. She does payroll. She calls up Wells Fargo or ADP, has them do payroll, hands me back the phone. We go in. She has a C-section, and she says once again, I said, baby, I don't need to go. I can call them. And they said, Chris, we understand. Come in for a couple of hours. We'll make sure you get done what you need to get done. I did not miss work. So my wife could deliver via C-section, be in labor. All of that can happen, and I will not miss work. But if I get the flu and my voice doesn't work,
you're done.
Fucked.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, even there's certain like emotional things that, that I had to pull stuff together. My mother passed away early in December, right before all this kind of shook out.
My condolences, sir.
Thank you. And I had to fly back to Toronto really swiftly. It was very, very difficult. But I had to kind of turn on a dime and mask everything and make it happen. And in a moment, be like, I can't let anybody know this stuff.
Right.
And it speaks to what you said about that odd dichotomy of fragility and durability, where these extraordinarily difficult, trying circumstances are like, so you can't trust that the message won't be lost in translation and say like, listen, something's going on right here. The person who I have to shout out, who extended an incredible, like I love her. She is so amazing. Who extended such immediately extended all the latitude possible was Amanda Wyatt. And Amanda was like, I heard what happened. I know we have stuff happening. You take as much time as you need. We will work around that. And I was like, that's my homegirl. I'm never gonna forget that. Never. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because like a tight end on a football team can get a cold, even get the flu. They'll give you fluids, they'll do something, you'll get in, you'll play that game. If he turns his ankle, if he rolls his ankle, he might be out for a half, might be out for the whole game. And it's the exact opposite for us. And I'm lucky I have not had to go through something like that you went through. And I don't know if I would have made the job. I think I would have just said, no, I'm just gonna take some time. Everybody's different, but that's a hell of a hill to have to climb. It was tough because it was sort of the year prior. My brother's wife had died suddenly of cancer in January.
Oh man!
And the anniversary of my father's death is Christmas Eve, so the whole thing is compounded right in that space.
That's a lot.
So it's a lot. I mean, the one thing that I think that a lot of people know me for is, look, I show up. I'm kind of me. I don't really say much. I do my thing and I boat, but I'm not like one of those. I'm not like the rah-rah dude, right? I just kind of show up and I do my thing. And that was kind of what's kind of factored into that is I always just want to be known as somebody who's diligent, who's punctual, who's ready to go.
Right.
Whatever I got going on, that's on me. I'll muscle through that. As far as what applies to the job, you get 100% from me regardless, period. So that's kind of something, again, to bring it full circle to what you were saying, is networking, fantastic. Being up on social media, get your numbers up, great.
Yeah.
There is a level of when you, and not to over dramatize it, but you got to fight through stuff to get stuff done, that no amount of networking, no amount of glad handing, no amount of like baskets sent to various people is gonna fix it. Like, you just gotta be that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I had a chance to have, I've done this a couple of times now, and it won't be happening this year because of the pandemic, but when we do table reads for The Simpsons, a couple of times my alma mater, University of Georgia, they looked me up and said, hey, we want to establish more of a presence for our alumni here in SoCal because it's on the other side of the country, and we have so many people coming out of the media degrees we have at University of Georgia. They come out here and they don't know anybody. We'd love for them to. Now, here's a smart way to network. And I thought, okay, I tell you what, and I've asked very nicely. They've always accommodated me. I've brought some students in who were interning out in LA. I said, come see a table read. Come see a bunch of world-class professionals doing what they do. And then, I'll take you guys on a tour and I'll answer any questions you might have and just show them around the studios. And we do that. And every time it happens, there's, it's usually a dozen kids. I say kids, they're in their 20s, but, they're go-getters. And I asked them both times it's happened. I said, and both times everybody's nodding their heads. I say, do you guys feel, because of social media, pressure to be successful immediately? Because all your peers seem to be just flossing on their Instagram, just constantly showing you, oh, living my best life. They're hashtagging, and they always say yes. And I always say to them, this is very tough advice to follow, but just ignore it. Because I guarantee you, and they're not getting any farther than you are right now. They're making it look like they are. And even if they're momentarily ahead, it's a cliche, but it's a marathon. And so many people are conditioned by the immediacy of social media to get the instant gratification of somebody liking what you're doing, somebody retweeting it. And so your arc for success has just been dramatically compressed. And so I tell them, I said, look, I'm 51. And I told them at the time, I said, look, I'm 49. I'm having the best year I've ever had. And I'm 49. All right? When I was your age, I was barely getting out of school. I had nothing but debt until I was in my 30s. And I am as happy as I could ever be. So just because you're not going to make it immediately doesn't mean down the line you're not going to continue to build and build and build. And then find yourself suddenly surrounded by a body of work. How did I amass this? One job at a time, one session at a time, one contact that you made, not because you hustled, but because you had a great audition. They booked you. You really acquitted yourself well at the read on the day. And they realize, okay, doesn't matter how well this person networks. This guy actually does the job. Like you say, he's easy to work with. Boom, you're in. And then it slowly grows from there. But try telling that to somebody on Twitter who is busy trying to roll up their follower count, their likes, their retweets. They think that is the job. It's like, it's not. It's a facet of it.
It's not. And you can't be on there, established or not, bragging on your own damn name all the time. And it's the thing. Self-praise is no recommendation. Yeah. Self-praise is no recommendation. I've seen people on Twitter who run their mouths incessantly. Everything that comes out of their mouth is like, it's like, how do you not have broken ribs from beating your chest all the time? But that's why, for me, certainly the one thing that I've learned precisely to what you were saying is I can't live every day without an overwhelming sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
When I was 20 years old, my first record came out.
That's got to be a hell of a feeling.
Insane. Hearing your stuff on the radio. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Got dropped, had another record came out in 94. It's like every group that I have ever wanted to be around, it's like, that's it. Brand New being Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Chubb Rock, Main Source, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, De La Soul, everybody. And thinking in your head, this is where I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. And then realizing come 2000, you're like, man, it's like I'm on the outside. I'm in the alleyway, the dark lit alleyway on the outside of the door that only opens one way with no way to get back in. I'm like, damn. And then the beginning of the voiceover career and where that goes, and to go, as you said, building on everything and remembering, and this is something I used to say with my man Maestro Fresh West all the damn time, is body of work belongs to us. Legacy belongs to everybody else.
Right.
So all we can do is the best we can to construct our body of work with a sense of integrity and to keep moving forward. That's it. Legacy is something that's defined by people who have the time to write that shit.
Right.
Because otherwise what you're doing is you're doing things while walking backwards, ensuring that everything is falling the way you want it to. Can't do that.
Right.
So getting to that point, and getting to a point now where it's the same thing, where you hit stride and you're like, I can't be anything but grateful. I can't be anything, approach anything but without a sense of childlike wonder and gratitude for every opportunity given, especially now. And that had always been something that governed my life, but it's only deepened as time has gone on, where there's no room for like that sort of, vain puffery or this sort of electronic seeking of endorphins or whatever it is. It's like, I don't have any time for that. I can't have time for that.
Right. Yeah.
So, that's kind of what it is.
It is definitely seductive. There was a guy on 60 Minutes. You probably saw it. It was a couple of years ago, and this is my phone in case you can't tell. But he says this is a slot machine, okay? And when you open up all your apps and you see all these little notifications going off, you touch them because you want to see, did I get a like? Did I get a retweet? Did I get an ad? Did I get a follow? And every time you do, you get a rush of endorphins, a little rush of serotonin, and it spikes. And it creates an addiction because you want to go back and back and back. And the pitfall there is to become too meta about it. And instead of using that social networking as a way to perhaps get your foot in the door so that you can show this skill set that you've taken years, let's be honest, it takes years to build it. Instead, you've become addicted to the process of using social networking because they're very wily. Those engineers, they know how to hook you. And before you know it, now you're thinking about you're instead of building a career, you're just thinking about your career, and that by then you've lost your plot.
What's so funny is, and this is the thing, it's like you're constructing your performances and you're reverse engineering them to how they're going to play on social media, as opposed to be in the moment. And I'm like, listen, I'm the last person who should give acting advice to anybody, but instead of being in the moment and losing yourself in that performance and giving 110%, it's like the old phrase is, you're only going to be as great as you are willing to be terrible. So if you have some kind of thing like, well, I can't look bad while I do this job ain't for you. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to be a fool.
God bless Jamie Thomason, who is also one of my all-time favorite people. But I can't count the number of times where I have been in sessions and I'll like go in with my chest on a take thinking I got it. And there'll be a pause. And then in that unbelievably unmistakable Jamie Thomason way, he'll go, that was an interesting choice. How about we try something else, only this time we put it in something that will, like fit in the show. And I'm like, and I love that. Like, you don't understand how that makes me laugh, because again, it's like I feel safe in that environment. So when he sends that to me, he's not taking a personal shot. That's just his way of going, I know I can play with you that way.
Sure.
But again, there's that whole sense of, if you haven't cultivated that sense of that Miles Davis sense of, I take what I do seriously, I don't take myself seriously. If you haven't cultivated that, then all of a sudden he would say something like that and it would cave everything in and you would retreat. Yeah.
It is something that a lot of people, again, if you're still having these issues and it's holding you back, and you're say in your 40s or older, it's going to be a lot harder to turn that Titanic away from the iceberg. It's hard to right the ship. But in your 20s, you're young enough to where you're still learning and you're still building habits and you're still becoming who you are. I mean, literally until you're about 24 or 25, your brain is still developing. So there's hope. But I remember at 22, 23, 24, I had people blowing smoke up my ass all the time because in college, I was the funny guy who could do the comedy, and I had just started doing stand-up, and you're in a small pond, you could do the voices. So they keep telling you how great you are, and then doing open mics. I'm the best open micer. And then as the MC, he's the greatest MC on the road, blowing smoke, and then you start to hit ceilings. As you start to go into broader and broader avenues, you start to notice, oh, there's more company here. There's more talented people here. You get into bigger ponds. You realize, I don't think I'm the most talented guy in the room anymore. I'm certainly not the most experienced guy. And then your ego just starts getting jabbed. And then you start to question yourself a bit. You're not used to this. And cut to, maybe if you got lucky and got placed in a situation that you weren't ready to be in, and you have a Jamie Thomason who is just kidding with you, and you're not ready to hear that kind of criticism, you're thinking, I don't even know how to respond to that. That's why you need those years of building up your craft and understanding,
Right. And understanding that the room is safe, and understanding what Jamie says is not a personal insult.
No.
And if anything, he loves dearly everybody in that room and is encouraging.
Yeah.
It's, not to use the sort of like, the phrase, but it's just his way.
Yeah.
It is just his way. And it literally is something like, whenever I see his name, if I'm lucky enough to be in a session with him, I'm like, right. Oh man, I can't wait. Because I know he's going to say something that, first of all, is going to make me laugh my head off.
Right.
But second of all, he will always direct in a way that also is insightful, concise, and direct, mm-hmm. without being abrasive, rude, or condescending.
Mm-hmm.
And that also, again, to bring it all back to the beginning of what it is arguably the quality that is as important as talent is resiliency.
Oh yeah.
If you can't, like, I have no pride because I've fallen down and smashed myself so many times. I'm like, I don't give a crap. I'm like, what? You need me to put whipped cream on my face today? Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I have no pride because I've fallen down so many times, but the resiliency to keep getting up.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember doing my first mocap. Oh my God. I remember doing my first mocap gig, and I'm there with Sam Whitworth. Okay. And Sam is, again, I love that dude. He is hilariously funny and just a brilliant actor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for, Days Gone.
Okay.
So it's my first day on a set, and you're in the motion capture suit, so
right.
You already kind of look like there's no way to look cool because you're
mm-hmm.
in you look like you're ready to compete in the Olympic luge, and you got dots on your face,
yeah,
and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I look like an ass. So John, the director,
mm-hmm.
Calls us over, and as you know, it's like a giant white room that you're in,
yeah.
and it's very sterile. Like there's
mm-hmm.
there's nothing to visually inspire you.
Yeah.
So we're standing there with our helmet cams on, and we're both looking at me, and John says to both of us and there's like 20 people in crew staring back at us.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, okay, fellas, first thing I want you to do is forget everything you learned in drama school. So I'm kind of staring at him blankly like this. And I just say, after like a second, I look at Sam, I go, that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. What's drama school?
Because, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, God. So, and I'm like, in my head, I was like, it's going to be a long day. But, again, the resiliency and leaning on the instincts of doing what I found, I said, stop that cycle of negative thinking. You're here
right.
now. Handle
right.
this. So I pulled Sam over and I said, listen, I know what we got to do in a scene. I'm just going to tell you right away. I don't give a shit if you put your hands on me. Like, I'm not like going to get all, I have rules. It's like, bro, if we get into an all-out fight, I don't care. Like, let's do this. And he's like, oh, great. So we start doing the scene, and because of the nature of who it was, I just relied on my on the voiceover things to guide me, and did my best, and then listened with an open ear and open heart and vulnerability, knowing it's like, I walked in complete, I'm gonna walk out complete. And it was like, it came out fine. It came out fantastic. And I was like, okay, clearly that's not to say I don't need training, but to the extent that when I can do those things, it's like the same exact thing. It's like, all that other is just not going to save you. What is going to save you is laying yourself bare and being like, I am willing to be absolutely terrible at this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've seen this. People don't admit to it, but I've seen it, and you can always smell it, because it's been on me before. The people who, you can tell they have some talent, but they're afraid. They're afraid because they've been built up in the same way that I was built up, in the same way that you were built up, and they're enjoying being at that height, and they look down and it's like, I don't want to fall from this, but you're going to have to, because at some point the wind's going to blow, it's going to knock you off, and you just get right back up. It's okay. You got up there the first time, you'll get up there again, but I see that they're afraid to, and they just decide, I'm just not going to risk. And the risk is all up here. It's in your head. There's no real risk. You're not literally walking a tightrope. There are people with really dangerous jobs. This is only your ego here. And yes, your ego is important. Your sense of self, your sense of your place in the world is determined by how you see yourself, but you can adjust that. And so if you're out there and you want to get into the business and you know you're scared, you don't have to admit it to anyone but yourself, but you know you're scared and you shy away from opportunity or you sabotage things, realize you're doing it just because you're not willing to do what we're discussing right now. Lay yourself bare, swing, miss, get laughed at, whatever. Who cares? If this is in you and you want to express art, you're an artist, none of that stuff will matter. You will say, let them laugh. This is the only way to be myself. Risk being rejected. Risk it not going well. And if I see people online, I can see that hesitancy. I can see it when they ask me questions. I've seen it in peers, not at this level. The people at our level, they have fear, but at some point, they've just mastered it, so because they're working, they've gotten around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like, and even when I look at another one of my all-time favorite people, John Dimachio.
Oh yeah.
John is, and you can't even say his name and not start laughing.
He is a hurricane.
Oh my God.
Of talent and comedy.
And here's the thing too, and kindness and support.
Yeah.
Because I've been in situations, in sessions where people are. You can see them kind of getting tense or freezing up because this is like their first time. It's their first session maybe, or they're not, they're on camera people and they're not really familiar. He has this innate ability to bring everybody together. Like he just kind of opens up and kind of pulls everybody to say, we are here together and we won't let you fall. But John is like somebody, same thing, where he's like, he fosters that sense of, again, the whole thing of everyone could do silly voices.
Yeah.
It's not until you really watch John and listen to him, and if you've been fortunate enough to be in the room with him, that you realize the extraordinary level of depth and discipline, to your point, where he has an extraordinary amount of knowledge and knowledge of minutia of theatrical comedy, music, that he pulls from all of it, that synthesizes into things instantly in this utterly genius way that he does stuff. So he can pull from things like classic black and white movies from the 50s, golden era hip hop albums, and stand-up comedians that may have been good in the underground but never broke free, and pull all those things together in a second and make something new out of it. And you're like, that only comes with knowing that, yeah, I'm going to do something that's going to sound ridiculous, but for everything that I do, it's going to keep getting better and better and better. And then you look at him and he's like, the dude is like the one of the sharpest honed blades in the business. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, and a performing background. Was part of a comedy duo. I think it was Red Johnny and the Round Guy.
Red Johnny and the Round Guy, and he was a stand-up comic, and he can also sing, which I've heard him sing, and I'm like, God, dude, what the hell? Like, he can sing. He can. He has on-camera acting talent.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He's just, he's that guy.
Yeah, and a lot of this does come from that live performing, where I think that maybe the people I'm running into that haven't gotten over that fear, it's something that it's better if you conquer it young. That you're eventually gonna have to deal with it. It's that's John Fogerty's song, "The Old Man Down the Road." That people ask him, "What's that song about?" He says, "It's your fear. Everybody has an old man down the road that you're gonna have to deal with, and you're scared of them, but you're gonna have to deal with them." And so the guys who come from stand up have that is a crushing assault on your ego when it doesn't go well. And so you've got to be able to take that, get up and do it again. If you've got a stand-up background, that helps. I cannot imagine, like, I know the pressure of doing stand-up. I've done stand-up in all black rooms. And that's an extra level of pressure where you realize if this doesn't go well, it might be worse than them just not laughing. And so,
well, and the one thing about hip hop is
that's what I was gonna say. Rap battles. Rap battles. The only thing I can think of that's more pressure than stand up. Rap battle to me is infinitely more pressure than doing a stand up set. To me.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly comfortable saying this because I think this is, again, based on what we were saying.
Yeah.
Falling down and getting back up again was not too long ago. I put up a flyer for a show that I did where I opened up for Naughty by Nature.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So I opened up for Naughty by Nature.
What year? What year is that?
Oh, man. This was right after 1993 came out. So this was right on the cusp of Hip Hop Hooray.
Okay. So they were already known.
They were already massive. And Tretch had given up the machete and was now carrying around a chainsaw. The chainsaw was something that he stole from another rapper named YZ in New Jersey because they've been beefing on and off for a long time. So if you look at that album cover, he's holding a chainsaw, which is not unlike the subtle diss when you see Kool Moe Dee's album cover, How You Like Me Now. That Jeep in the background is parked on a Kango, which is his diss of, which is
LL Cool J.
Where it's a diss LL Cool J. So he's holding this chainsaw, which was the signifier. It's like, I took this from YZ. So the show did not go well. Okay. I got right out the gate. It got booed. I got booed. And I'm okay saying that because it's like, because in the moment you think this is the end of my life. It's like, no, it's today.
Yeah.
Now we turned it around because as so happened, Main Source was with us. So Main Source came out and they did Looking at the Front Door and they did, a couple of songs, and it was like, so we turned it around. But the whole thing was that same thing of you have to fight through these things.
Oh yeah.
You have to fight through them. You have to keep going. I mean, even when and this is the thing, like after that, I got off stage, I'm like standing there and, I must have looked like, somebody had just beaten me senseless. So I was just kind of standing there for a second where like, well, that was unpleasant. Like that was kind of like the look on my face. Yeah. And this hand just kind of goes clap like on the back of my neck and just kind of gives me a very fraternal shake.
Right.
And it's Tretch. And Tretch is just looking at me like he's like, homie, that shit happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? In that moment, the odd thing was, it's just today.
Yeah.
It's just today. Yeah. Because even to take a story from Tretch's background, where he was talking about his upbringing and what kind of threw him off was I remember he told a story about his father. Apparently his father was who he was estranged, was supposed to come and visit him one day. And Tretch had bought him a birthday present. So Tretch, Anthony Chris, I believe is his real name.
Yeah.
But Tretch sat out in front of his house waiting for his father to show up. And his father never showed up. And even when I think about that, like especially now when I see friends who have kids, and even who I know friends who have died, whose kids now are raised by, like, my man, rest in peace, King Rain. Like, there are a lot of situations where it's so difficult, and you look at that and you think, man, having a show where you have like a not great reaction, that's nothing. If you're if your little heart at 12 years old is broken by something like that, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
That's a really bad day.
Yeah.
And that's where the, even again, to go back to like everything where you see people in any entertainment field who take themselves too seriously, it's like, this is the friggin' greatest job in the world.
Yeah.
Calm. And I'm trying to limit my swearing, but for real, calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, stop being out there like, I am so talented and I am bragging on myself all the time. So calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah, because I have similar stories like that of bad shows. I mean, like, I say an all-black room. I know these days, to be politically correct, you say African-American. I'm sorry, but in the 90s, you played an all-black room. They didn't call it an all-African-American room. That was the circuit. I didn't do that circuit, but a friend of mine who's a comic, he's a fellow comic, he's black, he says, I want you to come play this room. And I said, okay. He goes, it's an all-black room. And I said, okay. He goes, I think they're going to like you. You do those voices, you got good energy. You just got to make sure you got to come with it. All right? You can't slowly build up. All right? They don't have time for that. But I've learned an audience like that will either be a very tough audience, or it will be the best audience you've ever had. When they decide to give you love, it is showtime at the Apollo. If they love you, nobody will ever love you that much. And that's how that set went. It went great. But then I did one in Miami, and let me tell you something. And they called it Urban Night, but we knew what it was.
I can't, and that's another word that needs to go. I hate that word.
Yeah, it's like urban. It's like, well, I live in the city. Yeah, but you're white. It's like, well, just say black. Just say it. Stop trying to code everything.
I hate
it. Was Urban Night, and there were two shows. There was like a 9:00 show, and that was the cool show. It was an all-black crowd, but they were the nicest crowd I've ever had. They were with you. It was awesome. And they said, we're not going to ask you to do the midnight show. And they said, because to be honest, that's where these are the guys from the hood. All right. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous show. Like, one comic once was dealing with a heckler and got pistol whipped later that night by someone from the audience. And they said, yeah, we're not going to ask you to do that show because, that's going to be a little dicier. And we don't even let our female staff work that show. So, and the show started at midnight. So that tells you that there are no shows.
That's like, regardless of where it is. I mean, by that point, regardless of where it is, everyone's going to be drunk.
Oh my God. Yeah. There is no good show that starts at midnight. All right. Yeah, there's just no way. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But on top of that, in Miami, and it was an urban night. It was an all black crowd. And they said last minute, we need you to come down and do 5 minutes. I said, you said I didn't have to do the show. And they said, yeah, but another guy didn't make it. Come on, you did great at that one show. Come on down and do the show. I said, okay. And I did about 5, and I was getting nothing. There was just they were just kind of staring at me. And I thought, there should be some laughs or there should be some boos. This is an eerie quiet that I don't like. I don't know what's going on. And so I just wrapped it up and said goodnight. And the club owner came over to me and he said, why'd you stop? I said, they weren't laughing. He says, but they weren't shouting shit at you.
Well, and and having seen people get, booed off stage in certain instances it can be tough.
I walked out of there and I said to myself, all right, I kind of bombed there, but I guess because a show like that can go much, much worse. Okay, fine. But I felt lousy. I felt like you did. I was like, that just did not go well. And I did one thing, and it was a minor thing, but I said, I'm not leaving. I went and sat at the bar, and I said, I'm going to let everybody walk out and say, that's the kid that basically didn't do well. And I said, I don't care. I'm not going to leave.
And that's like an important thing because it is, even when I've been around people in sessions who are in VO sessions, people who are established on camera people. So I certainly would never profess to think what I know goes on in their heads.
Right.
But from what I can gather, what I get is I can't look bad in front of these people who have absolutely no fame whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I get. And I may be reading too much of my own. Maybe I might be imbuing a little bit of defensiveness.
No, I don't know. I've worked with enough people that came from lofty places in the on-camera world. They're in front of a mic with a stand, and there's no cameras. And suddenly they can't use that glow that they naturally have. It's like the mic's not going to pick that up.
They get shook.
Yeah.
And it is kind of this thing where they'll see, like, they'll perceive that someone will ask for multiple takes.
Yeah.
Where they know everybody else, they've seen everybody else in the room, maybe give an A and a B, and then they keep it moving. And man, it's like people are sweating like they're at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And when the session's done, they are up and out. And it's that kind of thing of like, there are just going to be days when you're going to roll your ankle on the curb or you're going to spill your drink on yourself. It's
true. And it's something that as soon as you've lived it, you realize it's true. And when you see somebody else too afraid to do it, you say, okay, I'm all I can tell you is go ahead and give it a shot. It's going to be okay. But that's all you can do for them. And again, there's so many things that's in somebody's head, and you can get it crossed up. You can, since we live online now, and since we're locked in at home and we don't get to get out and see each other, we spend all this time online. And once you're online, you're getting a facsimile of the world. It's not the real world.
Right.
And so they get it in their head that, oh, I don't have as many followers as this person. And they're tweeting about all these jobs they're getting. And they're tweeting about all this success they're having. And suddenly you've downgraded yourself for no reason other than you've compared yourself to someone inappropriately. And next thing you know, they're in your head. And it's like if you've done on camera, I don't do on camera anymore. It's been forever. But an on camera.
I can't move through time and space.
An on-camera waiting room for an audition is a different animal than
wait.
Yeah.
That I do know.
You know that.
I do know, and I got some stories for that. But yes, holy smokes, is that true?
There is, if you're playing pickup basketball on the playground, the trash talk is direct. It's right at you. It's not indirect. It's direct. That's just part of the game.
Right.
If you're in an on-camera audition waiting room, it's a vicious trash talk that's going on, and none of it is direct. It's all passive. It's all a guy comes in, starts talking about the job he was working on, chats up his buddy, and they start talking about people they know from sets they were on. In other words, I am exuding an air of superiority because I'm entrenched here. I'm working. I know the casting director. I'm just in it. I'm fine. Everything's great. And you're the rookie. And you got to be able to overcome that and block all that out. And that's the internet. Yeah.
The only time I've done that in certain, I don't know because we all know the voiceover addresses for auditions.
Yeah.
I don't remember the on camera ones because every once in a while you go to those ones.
Yeah.
But the couple times that I've been up in them and people have said, where it's like that kind of conversation goes, where it's this just absolutely masturbatory exchange between people where of one-upmanship.
Yeah.
I'll just like someone will say something or look at me and I'll be like, oh, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because the minute you say something as disarming as that, they're guaranteed not to talk to you again.
Yeah.
Which is what you want.
Yeah.
But B, it also says, let's just tone down the chest beating and be like, because the comma at the end of the sentence is, if you think you do know what you're doing, you have no idea what you are doing. We are all equally stupid. And when we go in the room, nothing makes a difference. So all I'm going to do is go and do what I do. Yeah. And if you're going to be the person who's trying to spoil it out here, that's fine. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Do your worst.
Some of those addresses I do know, and then one day we'll get back to going to those places, I think. But
I believe, we will.
I've walked into those places and I absolutely love going there because it's like visiting a place that you don't have to live in anymore and it's been condemned. And you'd realize, oh yeah, I don't live there anymore. It's great. Oh, there are rats and it's got black mold, because I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. And I see the game being played and I get to float above it or beside it, but I don't have to get involved in it. And I'll chat up some of the on-camera actors because it's great because I don't have to do it. And I just feel like it's almost like I'm visiting them in prison. It's like, I don't even know you, but I'm going to sit down and have a chat with you because I get to get up and leave and go do something else. But you have to stay here in jail. That's the way I look at it.
That whole mentality of, how you're dressed and the fact that you have to be in the gym and the level of vanity and also just the level of vindictiveness is like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So
I know.
It's one of those things where, and again, I mean, I certainly would never say that I'm somebody who has, low impulse control, but it also something that, I be something like you say the wrong thing, or if it was 20 years ago, you say the wrong thing and be like, I beg your pardon, and we got an issue. But it's kind of like to build on what you said earlier, where voiceover is, for all intents and purposes, a meritocracy.
Yeah.
So that sense or that underpinning allows for people to know that no matter how much dancing on the head of a pin you do in the waiting room, everybody really knows that it's like, it's what counts when you go in there.
Right.
So everyone kind of just sort of drops the pretense, which is really nice. And that's like, I don't ever want to say I'm at an age where, but I am at an age where it's like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Go in there to have fun. Like usually the voiceover waiting room, somebody there and you could just sit there and have fun, joke, have a good time. It's usually not a gig that's going to make or break you. And, if it's not you that gets it, one of your friends might get it. It's like, hey, good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Your ego is not on the line in the same way that it is in an on-camera.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they're not going to size you up the way they do in an on-camera. So that's one of the reasons why I love going and visiting and seeing it, because I see them and I just think, hey, I get it. There's a brass ring at the end of that if it works out for you. It's amazing payoff, but not for me. Not for me.
Yeah. I mean, I got called when I did go to one on-camera audition. I walked into the room and they have like, the friggin' flash dance style banquet tables where they're all sitting back and looking at you, whatever. So I'm walking up to the tape mark. And one of the people behind the table says, he's kind of fat. Oh my God. And I didn't know what to say in the moment because I was like, first I was like, hey, what? But what I did think was, first of all, what would make you say that out loud? And second of all, why on earth would you do that thinking that I cannot hear you? So I just did one of those walk out, hit the mark, turned around, didn't even stop and went right back out. I'm like, I'm not staying here for this foolishness. You out of your mind? Forget that. Forget that.
Yeah, my son ducked his head in because he wanted to know what I was laughing so hard at. It's like, well, I'll tell you when you're older.
All you can tell him is you're talking to your on-camera fat friend.
Yeah, I am my fat friend, and I laugh at your pain because it wasn't me. But no,
that's what it's there for, though.
No, of course, no. It's funny because you're right. Like, lady, what level of complete cluelessness or ice cold, just don't give a fuckness do you have in your veins to just be at that point where you're just nothing more than, I am an absolute truth machine and I'm going to spit it out. And I have no idea why people give me these looks all day, but maybe it's because I'm so offensive to them. And
and this is where I have a big issue with, because I've always been somebody who's like, the people who are most invested in telling it like it is are the ones who are least capable of having it told to them like it is.
Yeah.
So the empirical perception is that they are a relentless truth machine. The objective evaluation is you just say really callous shit.
Oh, of course. You have some sort of hole in you that is only filled by momentarily making other people feel worse than you're feeling right now. I mean, if we were to just lay it out there. Yeah.
Oh, and here's the thing. What was so dope was I literally did not even sweat it. Like, I did not break stride, hit the mark, walked out. They didn't even ask my name. I was like, done. I went straight to Zanku chicken, did a half chicken with extra garlic, and I was good.
Well,
I was like, man, I'm good. I'm good. What? Who cares?
Hey, by the way, guess what I'm eating after this? I'm going to have me some chicken with garlic. Because I love... No, I'm not kidding. I love chicken with garlic. It's not Zanku, because there's not a Zanku near me. But man, do I love me some Zanku chicken with extra garlic. I will not... This is not going to be enough garlic for me to finish it. I'm going to be mad.
You don't understand how when this is done, I'm going to put that place in a headlock, and I'm going to be eating it for a week straight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a buddy when we were starting out. I started out show business-wise, like pro, I started out in Orlando. And this is in the early to mid-'90s where you could get your training wheels off there. You could screw up, and nobody was ever going to hear about it. You were basically just going to, get your reps in.
Right.
So I have a friend, great-looking guy, and he had a level of craft at that point. He admittedly was not, Olivier, but he was learning the craft, and we were both early 20s. And he said, dude, I did an audition. I go in, I do the read. You hand him your headshot, because this is back in the days where everybody had headshots. You hand him your headshot. I do the read. They say, thanks. I turn around to go, and I hear them dropping my headshot in the trash can. I hear plunk. And
wow.
And I said, what did you do? And he says, and he's Italian. He goes, oh, I turned around. I took it out of the trash can. I said, these cost money. And I walked out with
it. Okay. That right there. Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to spur me to tell you my only thing of all the wonderful experiences I've ever had. And again, this points to, I only say this for the purposes of resiliency, is the only time I've ever had a negative experience to this level of something like that. Was I did this job one time it was a trailer for an interactive game.
Okay.
And you go to one of those studios where, they got $1,100 worth of lunch laying out in front of them and the whole thing.
Right.
And they're not paying attention because everybody's just on like whatever. They're on their app and they're not like whatever. And anytime they're doing something, they're all like, the engineer will say something and they're like, huh? Oh, yeah. What? And they're like, so I come out of the room and this dude is holding the contract between his thumb and his forefinger like this. And he's just waving it like this. And he says, come and get your easy money. And I kind of stood there for a second and I look at the engineer, and the engineer, who knows that, that I'm not that guy, right? Is looking at me like this. Like this, right? And I'm like, I got you. I'm not going to F your room up. I got a little more control than that. I think this is extremely out of tasteless, but I'm a man. I understand something is being stupid. Don't worry about it. So I'm like, whatever, chief, cool, we're good. I walk up to grab it. Dude drops it as I reach for it. Yeah. So I had to pick the contract up from the ground. And now I can hear the engineer's heart like a bass drum going bam, bam, going, holy smokes. I'm going to have to pull this dude off of this guy. So I pick the contract up and I sign it and I turn it around and I'm like, it was a pleasure working with you.
Yeah.
And the guy is literally like this, waving me off.
Right.
So I walk out of the room, and I'll admit, I went and sat in the car, and I was like, do I wait in the parking lot?
Yeah.
Pull the hoodie up and pull out the tire iron and deal with this guy?
Right.
And then I was like, dude, don't be stupid. Like, the worst thing you can do is let somebody who so clearly does not like themselves turn it into you. And understand that you're like, again, this is a wonderful job. Why are you letting one person who clearly is an idiot sour this experience? And once I kind of clicked that, I was like, I feel so much better. And it's climbing over those hurdles, climbing over my mother's passing, climbing over being told that you will never do this, climbing over all of those things and keeping going. You know, if everything had stopped when I got booed at the Naughty Nut by Nature crowd, if it got stopped at that, it's like, you would not have a beautiful family, an incredible career, and an amazing story to tell. And I wouldn't have like the journey that I've had, for which I am insanely grateful.
Yeah.
That is still being written. And it's like, that's it, man. It's all like resiliency is it.
Still, that guy is a test. That guy is, that's like the final boss in a video game of embarrassing. It's like, okay, you made it through all the little checks to your ego. Here's the final boss, and he just outwardly hates you. Like all of you. And he's going to show such disdain for you that you're going to want to forget everything you know as an adult, and you want to throw it all away just to clear his teeth, you know?
Well, and here's the thing. And again, it was like, also for me, it was less than, forget him. Who am I? Yeah. Am I the person who is owned by somebody else that easily? Absolutely not. Yeah. And so now the postscript, which is very amusing to this, is I went by this unnamed ad agency later this was like 6-8 months later for an on-site audition. And I walk in, and I kind of occasionally have this sort of spider sense thing where I can sort of, you know, I'm like, I can sense that something's there. Like, I'm like, wait a second. So I sense it. I'm like, my head starts going like, there's somebody, hold on a minute, wait a second. And I turn and I look like this, and I see dude in this kind of like, you know, ultra Uber Silver Lake hipster trendy office on a phone. So the guy who's leading me through, I'm like, you can keep walking. Like, I don't even look. I just stop and I drop my bag and I stand there and I just stare at him for a second. And this dude is on the phone, and he must have had the same sense I did, because he was like, he goes, and the look on his face was like, I'm going to die. And I just stared at him for a second. And he scrambled and hung up the phone and kind of started hurrying out of his office. And I kept walking, and he was walking behind me and said, hey, we were in that session together. I said, yes, I remember. And he was like, and he said, oh, wow, you know, you are like fantastic. You're a very talented person. I said, that's very, very kind of you to say that. Thank you. And he's like, wow, I really hope we get to work with you again. I said, I hope so too. So that I can remember it clearly. What was your name? So he tells me his name, and I shake his hand in a way that lets him know this is a transactional conversation that is not based on me simply saying, I'm making a business thing. This is me writing your name in cement in my brain so that when I need to remember it, I will. Yeah. And I just gave him the handshake, and I was like, it's very nice to meet you. Right. So but again, it's like, there are a million things that can possess or own you like that. You've got to, it's all the wonderful things. It's all the wonderful things and the funny things. I took
a driver's. I had to go one of those classes when you get a speeding ticket, and they said you can either get the point on your license or you can go to driver's school. I had to go to traffic school.
Traffic school, yeah.
And I remember the guy giving the traffic school. He said something perfect. Takes effort to remember it sometimes, but he says, you know, when you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off, or maybe they yell something at you, or maybe they crowd you, or they almost swipe your car, and you get enraged. You get road rage. He says, but just remember, don't let someone else drive your car.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, so
there you go.
You didn't let him drive your car. And the other thing I remember is, and this one serves me very well. There's a guy, it was a viral video. I shared it on Twitter, and it was to my utter disappointment that barely anyone retweeted it. I said, this is one of the most amazing pieces of wisdom you could receive, and hardly anyone cares. And it's a guy holding a bottle of soda. And he says, what happens when I shake up the soda? It fizzes. Okay, it's about to burst. What if I unscrewed the cap? It would go everywhere, and I wouldn't be able to put the soda back in. But what happens if I set it down and I wait a few minutes? It goes back down. then I can open the soda. He says, when
Right.
you get angry, everything wells up. Don't
Right.
take the cap off the soda.
Don't do it.
Let it die down. You know?
And the other, and exactly, and the thing that you know, to the extent that certainly you with your family, me with, you know, the people who I love and care about, the very same thing, where it's like my immediate go-to now when stuff like that happens, I'm looking stuff going like, there's so many things that I have to be grateful for. Why would I sacrifice them for something so?
Yeah.
Whether it's the parking spot, or whether it's somebody who says something sideways, or whether the pizza didn't come out the way it was supposed to, it's like,
It
doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother me.
I have to tell myself too, because I believe I'm very Socratic. If you do this, then this happens, and that happens. It's all gonna flow.
Right.
And when I'm challenged in that way, I have to tell myself, you know, you might feel like you're reacting to this person. You're reacting to your younger self who built.
Oh my God, that right there.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That the historical nature of that is something that we have to master.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This younger you that formed these associations, that felt put upon by the world. The younger, skinnier you that got picked on more, and you were tiny, and you were enraged by it, but you couldn't do anything because you were too small, and it just welled up, and it blew up in other ways at people that didn't deserve it. And even now, you carry around some of that, and when somebody does something that you think is disrespectful, sometimes you're not fighting them, you're fighting the younger you. The younger you that still is driving your car, you know?
Absolutely. And this is one of the things, because certain people have said to me, you know, they said, wow, you got like a real like crazy presence when you come in. Like people back off of you. Like there's an intensity about you. Now, quite honestly, I don't see that.
No, I don't see it either. I know that you could have it if you wanted, but
right.
Yeah.
And we sort of have a relationship where
we know each other.
We know each other really well.
Right.
But to the extent that it's also like, I used to brush that off until I was like, what am I carrying about the way that I used to walk through the world and needed to survive that somebody who is not from that world may see and interpret as aggression?
Right.
And I was like, okay, does it benefit me?
Yeah.
Do those methods and modes of dealing with people benefit me? And ultimately they don't, because exactly like you said, there are countless things that I could enumerate that would be like, nah, this is the way I used to walk through stuff, and this is what used to happen, and this is, you know, the way things used to get handled. But I don't do that anymore, because those things don't serve me, because I want to be happier. And ultimately all those conflict resolution methods or those problem solving methods, they're not only antiquated, they weren't productive.
Right.
They didn't elicit a positive result.
Right.
So ultimately, they weren't even great conflict resolution methods. They were conflict continuation methods.
Yeah. It's what you knew at the time. You did the best you could with what you had.
What I had.
That's what we're all doing. You know,
Right.
the wise man keeps adding to what he has, so he has more to choose from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that, you know, again, once again, bring it full circle. That's voiceover. Is keep adding to your thing. Keep building, keep putting. It's a brick by brick game.
Right.
It's not a building goes up in one day game.
Well, do you see, just carrying this forward a little bit, like I'm at a point in my career where I'm in my peak years. I'm having a wonderful time, and I'm a part of a unique show. And so much of it is tied to that I hope never goes off the air. But do you foresee, like I'll ask people, where are you in a week? You know, where are you tomorrow? A week, 6 months, a year, 5 years? You know, usually, do you plan things out? Do you see where you might like to be? As far as voiceover goes, our voices are our voices for a long, long time. Unless you're smoking and drinking, you're going to have this voice for a long time. So your ability to work won't be compromised for a long, long time. Do you see yourself creating other chapters in your life beyond voiceover years down the road, whether you're working in this field or not? Or is this something that you're completely in it and you're in it till the end, till they kick you out?
No, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, I do have other things that I'm doing. Amongst them is, you know, writing, technical aspect stuff, there's a lot of different things that I have been that I've wanted to do that are, I obviously don't want to be like, oh, and do the sort of litany of things. It's just because they're formative right now.
Right.
The second thing is, and this is to give all due respect to Rob Paulson, because I believe he was the first person, I believe, who told, or who I heard say this, is he said, every external discipline informs the way you do voiceover. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not necessarily a function of either or, it's a function of the necessity of doing other things in order to keep your approach fresh. Mm-hmm. So I still write rhymes, I still make beats, I still do scoring, I have animated series and live action series ideas that I have written down. Like there are things, I'm not going to sit here and be like blah, 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 because I'm, there's far more talented writers than I. But to the extent that exercising those muscles makes me return to voiceover with a fresh perspective, those things are not only critical and enjoyable, but just necessary.
Right.
I think they're absolutely necessary, because the singular myopic focus of just simply being, I only do this. Mm-hmm. Even Tiger Woods plays, horses around and plays other sports.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so, and that informs his focus on what he does. Mm-hmm. He just, Michael Jordan, same way, plays golf, and he would be the guy who would be like, oh, he could be playing checkers, and he would become so competitive that you're like, God damn, dude. But it's that the motivation and the intensity remain the same, but in doing other things sparks different parts of your brain, which always brings everything back. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I realized this, and again, this was, I had an idea when I was younger, and that's part of what getting older is realizing that some of your ideas from long ago just don't have any common sense or merit to them. It's just what you knew at the time. Yeah, so I thought it was going to be, it's going to be stand-up, and I use that to get into on camera, and then I'll get this done and that done, and everything else will happen, and it'll all fall into place, and of course, life happens, but I, with the benefit of hindsight, look at it as, okay, that was my first career. I've pivoted. This is my second career. This one might go all the way to the grave because it's voiceover. It's wonderful. It's so, you have a lot of freedom doing it. But like you, I've added other things. And so, yeah, I write stuff. I create stuff with my brother. I do the stream. I create content out of that. I'm always keeping that, other irons in the fire. And I've realized that instead of seeing your life the way you were seeing it when you were younger, why not just keep turning over new soil and, as you say, keep a fresh perspective? I now have a new perspective. Okay, my life is chapters. This is the latest chapter. I'm going to be adding other chapters. I don't know where it'll happen. I don't know when it'll happen. But the idea that it's open-ended with the ability to choose where you're going to go and not tether yourself to what you thought you were supposed to be at 19 or 20. Like, who you thought you were going to be at 20 was obviously informed by the fact that, got my first album. I'm out, this is where it's all going to go from here. If you were still thinking that way, if you were still tied to that, your life would be far more complicated.
Oh, come on. Yeah. I'd be bumming. Yeah. And on top, it's like, listen, man plans, God laughs. Mm-hmm. So we got to look at, you could spread out a roadmap and look at everything. Mm-hmm. Your car's headlights only see 30 feet in front of you.
Right.
So you may go, well, I got an idea where the road is. The there that you are getting to may not be what you think it is, and it may not be in the roads that you think.
Yeah.
You got to deal with what, there's an overall sense of where you're going, and you got to work within that because things are going to happen. Godwood's like every single day I wake up and I'm like, gratitude at the beginning, gratitude for getting through this day. Mm-hmm. Even today, session today. Internet went out at the beginning of the day. And I was like, okay, if I probably shouldn't say their name. If my internet provider.
What time did it go out? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was like 9, 10 o'clock.
Oh, in the morning. Okay.
Yeah.
It was out yesterday. Okay.
It was out yesterday too for 7 hours.
I did my stream today, and right around it was probably 12:30. No, it was maybe an hour into the stream. Just Wi-Fi just took a shit. Just took a dump. And I thought, this is hard. This is hard.
Oh,
so listen, it's a different time than yours. Okay. Yeah.
If the major internet concern that shall remain nameless, had a face, I would have punched it because I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I know.
Then additionally, there's this oddly negotiated settlement that I have to have that a lot of other voiceover actors have, where if you live in a building, you have to call ahead and say, if y'all are doing construction, could you please pause during this time?
Yeah.
So I get up in the morning and it sounds like these guys are holding an Olympic anvil dropping competition in this place. And I'm like, and I'm saying quietly, like, I'm like, what? I thought we had a talk. Like, I'm looking at the ceiling saying at that level going, I thought we discussed this. And I'm looking at it's 1:30. I'm toast.
Yeah.
Internet comes back on. They're done by like 11 o'clock. They're done. And I was like, this is where I am now. Andrew now is in a place where he doesn't let that rile him up. You roll with what it is and you work with what you got. Mm-hmm. And that's because what it is what it's going to be.
I tell you, it's. I was talking to Julie Nathanson last week, and
she's wonderful.
Julie's lovely. She's great. She's great. She's a trained counselor, so she's got her master's, and
she's an MFT, correct?
Yep, MFT. Like, I like knowing all the smart people. You're in Mensa, and by the way, your story about taking the Mensa exam is one of the funniest things I'd heard.
Yeah,
like the fact that you show up and like, apparently I'm the drooling idiot among all the other Mensa people because my pen won't work and I don't know how to fill out and blah blah blah. But you end up passing the test and getting in, so that's what I thought was funny.
You know that there were some set jaws up in that place when that
yeah, exactly. But
welcome to the club.
Julie and I talk so much about, this perspective you need to have. And a lot of times, look, some people are lucky they were born with it. Most of us have to work on it and achieve it. And it is about the fact that as you get older, if you're able to deal with your problems, if you're able to deal with your issues, learn from your mistakes, and slowly build pebble by pebble, you will actually get there to where the old you might have been raging at your upstairs neighbors and might have been raging at God knows who. And you decided, no, I'm going to apply wisdom. Age brings applied wisdom if you do it right. So that's, and I always try to keep in mind who might be watching this on YouTube later. Because somebody may come across this 2-3 years in the future when the pandemic is in the rearview mirror. Well, we're talking about the fact that you might be 22 years old when you're watching this. When you're 52, that'll be next year for me, if you do it right, and if you're lucky, you're going to have the career you want, and you're going to have applied wisdom where you learn, okay, I've made those mistakes in the past. I'm going to learn from them. And as I begin to make better choices, isn't it amazing how much more enjoyable my life becomes? How less frustrated I get. And so that's the joy of getting older is it's a privilege afforded to so few.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you do it right, your life gets better and better. That's the way I'm choosing to look at it.
No, and I agree with you totally, because you realize that things that you thought of value that are of value are like, these are the things that don't truly bring you comfort.
Right.
Like one of the things that, like, even right there, is like, it just made me like, I just got a warm sensation. When you hugging your son, I'm like, man, that's everything. There's nothing else. There's nothing other else besides that.
Let me tell you.
When you hug him, it's like, what else is there?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. There's the idea of keeping the things that wake you up in the middle of the night when, I don't know, the lizard brain takes over, when you're not fully awake and not completely asleep. It's a curious psychological state we're in when dark thoughts can get in. And there must be something that's evolutionarily psychological about that. In the middle of the night when you wake up, probably your body is wired through 100,000 years of evolution to be ready for anything, to be ready for threats. The things that threaten me now in the middle of the night is I've got to be able to protect my family. That's what your life becomes about. And it's funny that it'll always be something new. And the only way you get back to sleep is you say, okay, I'm going through a little psychological thing that's hardwired into my body. Nobody's hurt. Nobody's threatened. They're in the next room. Go back to sleep. And these are the things that when I was 22, that's not what came into my head. No.
What? Actually, what I'm going to do, and you can, for rights issues, I don't think you can tack it on the end of this, but I am going to send you.
Okay.
Common, the rapper Common, was, until his father passed away, he had a tradition that on the end of the last track of all of his albums, his father would come in and there would be a beat and his father would just talk about whatever he felt at that specific moment. So it was like a time capsule. Mm-hmm. There's one I'm going to send you where he's talking about what happened when Common was born.
Oh, really?
And how his life changed. Like how he was like, I suddenly realized the mantle and responsibility of who I am as a man will be forever different. Mm-hmm. And what I thought I valued has irreversibly changed. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. And you can play it if you play it while you're with your son. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, beautiful, heavy thing. I'm gonna send you that.
All right. And speaking of which, I owe him a game of Apex Legends because
I know he's been coming in. I feel bad because while we're talking about I'm preventing that. So yeah.
No, you're not preventing it. I'm making the choice. But see, this is the thing. This is the problem with me getting my friends on because we could talk for 5 hours. Because we can just talk about whatever. And that's what these are for me anyway. This is not an interview. You notice I don't ask boilerplate questions. Yeah, it's a hang. Hang it out. Which means we'll have to do it again. You know?
Dude, I'm down.
All right.
I'm down. You let me know.
I am glad your session got resolved. You worked. It's always nice. It's always nice when you're working. It's always nice.
And it's always nice to just like be in that place of go surrender it all. Do what you're doing and whatever. And that's it. And gratitude, especially now.
I'm all about it. Sir, I will leave you be. You got Zanku chicken coming. So
tonight it's something far less glamorous, but soon.
Okay.
Soon. I will be on the Zanku tip.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. You're going to have to tweet that. You're going to have to tweet about that then so I can enjoy it.
Oh, hell yeah. What? Come on now.
Yeah.
I'm going to come out of there with like a big old tub of the garlic. I'll
Good.
be like,
Good.
There it is. That's breakfast.
I need to enjoy that vicariously through you. All right. In the meantime, sir, this is awesome. It's always awesome to talk to you. And
Likewise.
let's do this again.
Likewise, my friend.